So Alan, we couldn't talk about talent in Malaysia without talking about the dreaded topic of COVID, albeit it's a bit of a cliche at the moment, but it's having such a transformational impact on the world of work.
Correct.
I'd be interested in your perspective on, what is the impact, the long-term, lasting impact of COVID on this so-called new norm that we're experiencing or seeing more of these days?
Well, I feel right now that we're having different sort of approach to how we want to treat this issue, right? Some people say they want to work from home, some say they want to see people again.
Yeah.
So I guess if you're able to create flexibility, right, for these teams of ours, that should be something viable in the long run.
Yes.
Right. And we're all looking into it. We're all looking into it, to be honest, right? Because we realize that certain job scope are actually allowed to be working from home.
Yeah.
And certain job scope, yes, you have to come to the office, you have to see people, you have to run certain meetings, but it's also on a very flexible sort of arrangement.
Cool. I think a lot of businesses are evaluating what their status is right now. I think it's a lot to ask for business to say this is our specific mandate on this. Is that the same at Carson? Is it are you kind of feeling your way through, but with an idea of where you want to get to, or is it sort of clearer than that?
On a group level, I think we're still exploring many opportunities or possibilities. Whereas on my team, I basically right now looking at focusing on metrics a lot more, right? Because we realize that having the right metrics, then you can allow that sort of flexibility, right? Because it's being tracked.
Yes.
And we understand that where you're coming from, what's your results and what's your achievements. Yeah. So then we don't care where you're working from home or whether you're working from the office.
And Carson as a business is quite open about the hybrid model.
Yes.
In terms of there's flexibility. I mean, how does that work for you guys? Is it a question of choice? Do people have to say elect working at home or coming into the office? How does it hold together?
Oh, I think there's so many variables to look into, right? Because we are growing so fast.
Sure.
And as I mentioned just now, office space is actually quite an issue, right? And we are scaling up in so many locations, so many branches. So I guess we are still exploring, right? Like I mentioned, on the group level. Therefore, that contributes to, whether we are doing a hybrid, whether we're doing, a work from home. So there's no set agenda yet, right? We're still exploring a lot of possibilities, especially under my team.
Yes, but it sounds like there's a real openness to the possibility of a hybrid approach, working from home, combined with coming to the office where needed.
Yes.
But the data is what you're relying on at the moment, and it's coming together.
And we have to be human about it. Because right now there are still some which is very worried about the virus.
Sure.
Yeah, right. And I think it's inhumane if we just keep telling people, I don't care, I want you to be exposed when you have certain dependence on you in the house.
Yes, no, that's very true, of course. Back to talking specifically about talent, on a topic that is, again, COVID related, I think it's well documented that access to visas has been compromised, although things seem to be getting a little bit more back to normal. In terms of software engineers, performance marketing, a lot of these niche skills, it might have been 30-40% expats on the ground in Malaysia that still need an EP transfer.
Correct.
Despite that, businesses have continued to grow, Carson being one of them. So, how has Carson sort of coped with that stress between demand and not having access to perhaps the broad range of expat talent over the last 18 months or so?
So that doesn't fall under my spectrum, but from what I can see, right, we are still hiring talents in that sort of the verticals. And I mean, yes, some of them are working remotely, but it also shows that because of all the things that we're doing are online anyway, so it actually is not a huge obstacle.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a huge obstacle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yes.
And hopefully from that foundation now, you do have access to expat talent potentially.
Yes.
That gives you just such greater scope. Having built that foundation, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. So I think Carson is a business that's built on a foundation of diversity. It certainly comes across in your employer branding. I mean, even the best recruiters may have blind spots or so-called subconscious bias, when hiring. I'd be really interested to know how Carson goes about driving its diversity agenda and ensuring that there's as objective an approach to hiring as possible to get the best talent in and obviously promote diversity as a result.
Okay. Again, this doesn't fall under my spectrum, because a lot of things it falls under the group HR.
Of course,
right? So how they push it, how they run it. Of course, we have meetings and we have discussions about it.
Yeah. So it comes from HR, but I guess that kind of falls upon line leadership, general management to execute. I'm just wondering how how that chimes with you guys, and you know what sort of initiatives come through and things that you're made to be aware of. That would be really interesting.
So we do have a lot of alignment happening, right? Because we know that this is the values that we are championing, right? And you know, so we have a lot of events and sort of gatherings that help to highlight these values consistently, right? So that everyone understands, whether it's a leadership level, not the leadership level, everyone understands that these are the values we champion.
Absolutely.
And in championing these kind of values, then automatically the diversity will happen, you know, the right kind of talent pool will happen, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I see you as someone that's a real proponent of culture as a means to success. And that seems to chime very well with, you know, how Carson presents itself. Employer branding, culture seem to play a really big role. Be really interested in your perspectives on that, the importance of it, and how do you, you know, in a nutshell, how do you drive positive company culture, would you say?
I've actually gotten this from when I was working in Magic under a different leader named Cheryl, right? And learning from her, you truly understand the value of transparency, communications, integrity, and trust, right? I mean, these are words that all the corporates seems to be throwing around, but you know, I find that it really helps when your team trusts you, and you know, in that trust, then they are able to do things for you, you know, with a clear agenda.
Yes.
Right? And therefore, that's why building up a culture is always something that's very core to me, because I believe that, you know, that's how a team should work, right? That's the trust that, you know, I know what the person next to me is doing, right? It might be deviating from what we have planned, but most probably the objective is exactly the same. Yeah, that's why the culture is always something very core to me in all the companies that I've worked in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That comes across very clearly as well. Very good. Finally, on to a very broad topic relating back to sort of Malaysia prospects. I mean, we're not going to succeed unless Malaysia succeeds, in a manner of speaking. Okay. So what are your thoughts and projections on Malaysia prospects? Let's say, I think talking 5 years is too long these days, given the pace of things.
Yeah,
let's say, given what's happened over in the last 2 years. So in the next 3 years, what do you think prospects are looking like for the digital ecosystem in Malaysia?
I think it's actually looking very good, right? Because of the ecosystem that we're working in. Therefore, we know a lot of other startups, company that's moving into the digital ecosystem, right? And looking at the leaders that's bringing, that's contributing to the ecosystem, I think is very, very promising.
Right.
Yeah, they're creating a very, very impactful wave. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you actually put it down to the people coming through and running it from the top as leaders.
Yes.
The digital icons, let's say. Cool.
Correct. Yeah.
And based on that, you see prospects as optimistic.
Because they're very consistent. They're very consistent with the kind of message they are bringing in, their kind of push they are doing for the industries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's through those leaders that it's going to inspire the next generation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And drive standards.
Exactly.
Absolutely. How do we keep them here in Malaysia?
Sorry?
How do we keep them here in Malaysia, or is it just a case of making sure Malaysia is as regional as possible, so you get that regional scope and you're not attracted to Singapore?
It comes to the point of, like you say, you know, the kind of how the ecosystem is growing in Malaysia right now.
Yeah.
Right? It shows people it can be done.
Yeah.
Like Carson being the first unicorn. It shows it can be done.
Yes.
By having that kind of impact, it already open a lot of doors and opportunities and help people to think, I can do that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
It helps when you have the right people to bounce ideas with and challenge you on the norm, because experience is very different from others, right? And when they bring in their perspective, wow, that's when great ideas happen.